third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a deep to right field. Way up there and way out! Second
And welcome back to the Stupid Money Podcast. We have a lot to go over because the Phillies had one of the most eventful homestands I think we've ever seen. 10 games, every game very different from all the others, very unique games, all different interesting storylines. So as it stands right now, Phillies are 65 and 54 in the first wild card spot by a game and a half over the Giants, and they're 3.5 up actually from the Cubs, who are the team on the bubble. So yeah, still in the first wild card spot, which you want to be 1 or 3, I guess is the best way to put it. You would either be home for that series, especially if the other team is going to be the Giants, because the Phillies just play so bad out in San Francisco. But you'll be the 1 of the 3 because you like your chances a little more in Milwaukee, I guess, than or you like your chances better in Milwaukee than in San Francisco, probably just the way that Giants team is weird and seems to kill the Phillies. So we'll see what happens there. But 10-game homestand against the Royals, the Nationals, and the Twins. 6-4. It started very well, 6-2, and then the Phillies dropped the last 2 here. Won't bury the lead. Michael Renzen threw a no-hitter against the Nationals, 124 pitches. That was crazy. Trey Turner got a standing ovation in game 1 of this homestand, and now he's on, a 10-game hitting streak with an OPS of like 1.2 or something like that crazy. So that seemed to work. A couple other guys could probably use a ovation at this point. But yeah, just overall, what were your thoughts on one of the wildest 10-game homestands we've seen in a while?
Yeah, I mean, even like the subtle things that weren't like obviously like you said, the no-hitter and the Turner hit streak were kind of like the flashing points of the entire homestand. But like it was just so weird. Just something like game 1 of the Nationals doubleheader, the first base umpire had 3 overturned calls in like the first 2 innings.
Yeah.
Like it's just like I don't know what it's been, but there's been certain points of the season that like weeks ago with the Harper at bat against the Brewers here where he just stood there. Then like the next week after it seemed like it was so weird and everything went wrong. And then with the Turner standing ovation last Friday. Yeah. Like that from that point on up until like yesterday, everything was weird, but it went right. So like it's weird how something like in over the course of 162 games, like things like that could just change your course of momentum or your trajectory for like a week. But yeah, all in all, it would have been, I mean, with how it started, obviously 6-4 kind of looks a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But I think like 7-3 winning one of the last 2 would have been great. But overall, I think they kind of separated themselves a little bit as far as the wild card went, because I think going into last Friday, they were either out of the wild card spot or bunched at the bottom for like the last wild card spot and tied.
Yeah, there were like 3 teams all within a half game or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean they handled Washington. They won the series against Kansas City. So they beat the bad teams, and like the Twins aren't great, but they are a first place team and their pitching's pretty good. Like Pablo Lopez always seems to throw well against us from his days back in Miami, and Sonny Gray's kind of having a renaissance year, and overall like he's been a good pitcher throughout his career aside from that one trip to New York when he was with the Yankees. So like you got beat by good pitching. it's not like they played bad, the Phillies. Like Ranger looked pretty good today, all things considered. And Walker's just weird.
Yeah, it's
But
very weird.
like I think what we've realized with Taiwan Walker through however many starts he's had, 20, 25 starts, 30 starts, he's going to keep you in games, and then his win total comes from whether the offense shows up or not. Like he's a solid 3. He's a really good 4, solid 3 if that's where you have him in your rotation. He'll keep you in games. He does this thing now where it's like in the first 2 innings, his ERA is like a 5, and then if he gets to the 6th inning, his ERA is like sub 2. So like he has to survive the first 4 innings, and then he kind of gives you at least 6, which is like manageable with how this team is built. And they just didn't show up yesterday for him, which is going to happen, especially after the last week of home runs that they hit. You expect them to kind of disappear. Just with how they've been the last few years, every time they score 10, they're not going to score any the next day. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, that was a lock.
But,
go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, good homestand.
Yeah, I guess it was. The one thing I did want to touch on, which was something I know I've brought up. I don't know if I brought it up on the show. I know I've brought it up to you. I've brought it up in group chats. I've probably even tweeted it a couple times. But my biggest concern was that they weren't hitting multi-run home runs. And then at the beginning of the Royals series, I think they had 10 on this homestand. It feels like I don't know if it was that many, but I felt like it.
Gelb was tweeting like a lot of the numbers as far as Matt Gelb had a lot of the stats. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but yeah, this homestand specifically seemed to be an abundance of multi-run homers.
Yeah, which was nice. I know the Saturday and Sunday games against the Royals, I think they hit 3 in both of those games.
Yeah, well, Turner had the one on Saturday.
Harper and Bohm did that day too.
Yeah.
And then Stott, Castellanos, and Schwarber hit ones on Sunday.
Yeah.
And Castellanos hit one on Friday night, a 2-run shot. So they had 7 multi-run home runs in a series, which I think they had 7 the entire year, it felt like before then. So, and that's why they were winning those games against the Royals and the Nationals. And the first game of the Twin Series was that they were hitting multi-run home runs with guys on instead of it being a single or a strikeout like they like to do. And then today, yesterday they just kind of got dominated, I feel like. But today, it was more like they had a couple chances, and Schwarber was the guy up each time, and it did not go well for him. So yeah, I don't know if they're gonna keep him in the leadoff spot, but does Turner's reemergence here, like, they have to start thinking about that now? Because I mean, Schwarber left like 7 guys on base today, and they lost 3-0, and it was really 2-0, and then they more or less waved the white flag with a Covey 9th inning appearance that gave up another run. So it's pretty much 2-0. I mean, he just gets 2 sac fly. The one was with 2 outs, but he gets a sac fly and a single, and they might be winning or it's tied.
Yeah, today it just felt like they were too cute.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, he gets 2 sac flies. Well, one was with 2 outs. One was with 2 outs because you had first and third with 1 out, and in a 1-1 count, Stubbs tries to sacrifice like a safety squeeze. It's like Stubbs is your best bunter, but we've learned, at least through the last month, definitely the whole season, but it seems like they're just trying to bunt more in the last month as the runner and scoring position numbers haven't been great, and they're just trying to manufacture runs. Even when it's like Rojas or those guys or Sosa, it seems to always be Sosa. You're not built, even with the role players, to manufacture runs. Yeah. And again, Garrett Stubbs has shown that he's a very good bunter, bunts for base hits often. If you're going to do it on the first pitch. I think in a 1-1 count, that's not the spot to bunt, because you're just so susceptible to a strikeout then, when all you need to do is put it in play. And if you're bunting, even if it's for a base hit, you can beat out a ground ball if you hit it in a double play. So literally just put the ball in play, and you should have a run as long as it's in the middle of the field. So I just think sometimes the lineup gets too cute, and especially the back end, and they just try and manufacture runs in ways that aren't necessary at the time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Have this great summary of the homestand up here because I didn't feel like saying everything, even though I still did like a 3-minute intro on it. But I don't know. Jordan Lyles getting a win was kind of funny. The fact that they let him win a game was kind of funny. Yeah, Joey Meneses is like the new Dom Smith now, I guess. Just really annoying. A player that feels like they're only in the league because they hit the Phillies. And I'll be honest with you, the last 2 games, I know the whole like they scored 11 or 13 or whatever it was on Friday, so it was a lock that they don't show up like the next 2 days. But I was a little concerned about how bad they looked against. Now, Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray are 2 very good pitchers. Not really Lopez, but Gray, I guess, is considered like in the upper echelon. But when you go in the playoffs and you play the Giants and it's like Logan Webb and stuff, like that's the level of the guys you're going to be facing. So I don't know. I would like to see a little more than 1 run in 18 innings against guys with sub 4 ERAs. To me, that's a little concerning. I know they don't have Marsh right now, but that's not a huge excuse for 1 run in 18 innings.
No, and I think I was kind of in and out the last 2 days, so I didn't really get to sit down and watch. But just checking the box scores, like I think yesterday I looked, and Lopez was through 5 innings with 7 strikeouts, and I don't know how many Gray had today, but like Schwarber struck out with the bases loaded. Bohm did the same, even though it wasn't really a strikeout. Like I said, Stubbs struck out with guys on the corners, and it's just like we know how the playoffs work. It's who hits home runs and what pitching staffs get strikeouts. And the Phillies, they're built to hit home runs, and they have been lately. But throughout the course of the season, I don't think they're on the home run pace that we expect them to be. And granted, I think I saw earlier in the season, they were on pace for 170 home runs. They hit 200 last year, and Hoskins had 30. So, like, you're kind of on the same pace that you were on last year, but you're missing those 30. So, like, okay, whatever. The guys that are in the lineup are kind of doing what you expect them to be doing. But, like, with how much money you invested in these guys' track records, you expect them to hit more home runs, and you know that they're susceptible to strikeouts. So, like, I think the roster is built well for the postseason, but it's built well on paper. You need those guys to perform in order to actually be built well for the postseason.
Yeah, I have 2 questions for you actually pertaining to the postseason. Before I get to that, actually, before the homestand, I was talking about how bad they were with the home runs. They were 21st in baseball heading into the homestand in home runs. They're now up to 16th with 137. So they did make a move there a little bit. 137 though. I know with no Hoskins, it's still a little behind where I think we expected them to be. Some of that is Harper, I guess, still with 7. I know the injury, but I think everyone thought he'd hit a little more if he came back as early as he did. You get a little more power from like Stott and Bohm than I think you expected, though. So that's not totally crazy. But the role players don't have that many home runs, honestly. Like Stubbs doesn't have a home run. He had 5 last year, I think. So
I think honestly one of the biggest voids is JT. You're really, I mean, he had 2 on the homestand, but like you're just not getting the production in general, what you expect from him. Like he's a 275 career hitter around that mark, and he's hitting maybe 250 this year. I know he was at like 244, but he had a good series against DC. But you're just not getting that production from him, and I don't know if that's from the wear and tear of the postseason last year, and then jumping right into the World Baseball Classic. But yeah, you're just not getting enough from him for what you expect and what you're paying him to be.
Yeah, since the pandemic ended, they went back to the 162 season. I don't know if anyone's caught more competitive innings than JT Realmuto.
It's not even close.
Yeah, if you count spring training, World Baseball Classic, and playoffs. So yeah, I really don't think it's close.
Can he go to Toronto this week? Is that still a thing where he can't go?
No, that was cleared up before the start of
Okay.
this year. Yeah, so he can
Well,
go.
I was
I
hoping he'd
think he
get
would have
blocked
started
again, and
today.
then
Yeah, that would. I mean, they do. He was off today. They're off Monday, tomorrow.
yeah,
2-game series, and then they're off again Thursday. So he does have, 3 days off in 5 days here. So that'll definitely help him. So I wanted to talk. I guess this is mostly about Michael Lorenzen, who can spit that out there, who
Hmm.
has given up 2 runs in 17 innings as a Philly and has a no hitter. The first one in Citizens Bank Park by a Philly since Roy Halladay in the playoffs in 2010. Cole Hamels in 2015 was in Chicago, and what year is that? 14, 13. They had the combined one in Atlanta on Labor Day. I can't
yeah.
remember what. Yeah, somewhere around there. But yeah. So he's been on fire, and I guess the question is, where does he slide in to this playoff rotation? Because Aaron Nola has been bad. Ranger Suarez has been better, but to me, because Suarez has bullpen experience, and we saw it in the NLCS last year where they went to him over guys out there in a huge situation. I feel like he's first in line to be thrown in the bullpen. So I think the 4 would be Wheeler, Nola, Lorenzen, and Walker. But what's the combo, especially in the wild card round where you only got 3 games?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this too, just as far as stuff. And like when you think of bullpen guys, I mean obviously they used Ranger a lot last year in the
Mhm.
playoffs out of the bullpen, and he doesn't have like the most electric stuff just on the surface. But like Nola's stuff in the bullpen does not work.
Mm-mm.
Walker's stuff in the bullpen, I guess, could work. He's doing another thing where it's like the first inning he's throwing 89, 90, and then in the sixth inning he could be 95. So like if you throw him in the bullpen, it's like, does he just come out and throw 95, or do we have to go through the whole getting loose, walking around the mound like he's in pain, whatever Taiwan Walker does? But even though Lorenzen right now is the guy that I trust the second most, it's just so tough with him because his entire career he's been a reliever
Yeah.
on pitch 124 or pitch like 118 or whatever, somewhere in that range. The other night he was throwing 95 still. So it's like, what does he look like this year if he comes out of the bullpen for an eighth inning? Is it 96? Is the changeup as good as it was the other night? Is the slider as good as it's been this year? But at the same time, he's been a top 5 starter in baseball since July. Like his ERA is like sub 1.2. It's like a 1.1 or maybe even a 1 flat. And like right now, he's the starter I trust the second most, aside from Wheeler. So like I'd love to say that he's penciled in the rotation, but like at this point, I don't know if he can be, just because the other starters don't really look good in a bullpen spot to me. Like the guy that would be the odd man out of the 5 for me right now would be Nola.
Yeah,
And
but it won't. We
he's
know it
not
won't be. But
he's not going to be because obviously like you're not going to put Aaron Nola in the bullpen. And 2, in the playoffs, we know that the relievers can come in at any situation. Guys on first and second, a guy on first.
right.
Nola can't pitch when it's a game in June with a guy on base.
Right.
That's his doing. If he comes in like the 8th inning of a 1-run game and there's guys on first and second and no outs or 1 out, like it could be a disaster.
Yeah,
so
it could be.
He'll definitely be in rotation, but I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess this is kind of a double-edged sword in a way, but I actually think that the wild card round, they will go Wheeler, Nola, Walker, because Suarez and Lorenzen both have the bullpen experience and their stuff plays out there. And I partially think they have to do that because the circle of trust in the bullpen, to me, is shrinking daily.
Oh yeah.
I talked about how I thought they really overplayed their hand. I know, like, probably asking prices were high, whatever. They overplayed their hand at the deadline by not getting a true bullpen guy. I know, like, they think Lorenzen is that too, but yeah, like an eighth inning type guy they could put out there. I really think they should have looked into that. And now you have Soto struggling. You have Dominguez shaky coming back from this injury. He's been really good or really bad. So him and Soto are pretty much the same thing right now, except one's lefty, one's righty. Alvarado is supposed to start a rehab assignment on Tuesday, and I guess he'll join them by Friday, I'd assume. But how's he going to be coming back from injury too? It's been a lot of time off, so you're down to him, Kimbrel, who's still been good, but has given up the home run ball a little more lately.
Yeah.
Which concerns me, especially going into the playoffs. And, two guys you kind of relied on down the stretch last year, Bilotti and Brogdon in AAA. Don't know why. And now you have Marte got sent down, but you have Hoffman, who was good and then had a couple rough outings lately. They got rid of Vasquez, who was a lefty with a sub-3 ERA. You have Ortiz out there now and Covey. So there's two long men out there pretty much. I just don't really know what's going on with this bullpen right now. I know missing Alvarado's huge, but I think Lorenzen and Suarez are going to be the ones thrown out there because you need guys that can give you some length that you trust, and maybe Nola and Walker have shorter leashes.
Yeah, and going back to like your rotation being Wheeler, Nola, Walker, I think that's what it's going to be because I mean we saw it last year. When it got past the 3-game series, when it got into the first NLDS series, it was Wheeler, Nola, Ranger, and then Syndergaard for 3 innings. So like Wheeler and Nola, they've been your ace, even if Nola's not pitching like one and Wheeler's had some questionable starts at times. They're your aces. You live and die with them. If they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs, it's going to be on the shoulders of those two. And then Walker has shown, even with his shaky innings, he's going to keep you in games. My biggest question with him is what's the leash look like in the playoffs? Like how I said, his first couple innings, the ERA is not great, and we see these 2-run first innings or 3-run first innings happen with him, and then he settles down. That's fine in August when you're not worried about the next day being your last day and the leash is longer. We've seen in the playoffs, the minute a guy gets into trouble, somebody gets the phone and the bullpen starts stirring. So do you have enough faith in him once he gets past that 3-inning first inning? We don't know what Taijuan Walker looks like in the playoffs. Like, is the moment too big, and does the 3-run first inning turn into that and then a 2-run third inning, and all of a sudden it's 5 runs against you in the first 3 innings, and it doesn't matter what your bullpen usage looks like because you're behind the 8 ball already. But yeah, I agree with you that they put too much stock in the Martes, the Hoffmans, those kind of guys. I was just looking. Scott Barlow was a name that we talked about at the trade deadline.
Lit up a little bit, yeah.
Right, but that was kind of one of the guys that was like the big name reliever on the market, and he got traded for 2 prospects from San Diego, and MLB has one of them as the Royals' 25th ranked prospect right now, and another one is not in their top 30. So the price there wasn't too high. Again, he got lit up a little bit. He's been getting hit, and the price wasn't overly high. But again, if they weren't comfortable taking the risk, then whatever. You can't go back on it now, so it is what it is. But yeah, I'm worried about the bullpen. A lot of it seems like they're banking on Alvarado being fully healthy, which I can't agree with after 2 stints on the IL with elbow inflammation or forearm inflammation, whatever it was. Like, that just scares me with a guy that throws as hard as he does and as whippy as his arm is. Like, that just, it seems like a bad recipe, but they know more than I do about how he's actually feeling. So hopefully they are using good judgment in evaluating his progress.
Yeah, I forgot to bring up Strom. Actually, I forgot he's out there. I could see them using Strom as an opener in like Walker's start, just because of how bad Walker's been in the first inning, and like send Walker out in the bullpen and let him throw the entire first inning. So like you're not saving his pitch count, but you might be saving yourself a couple of runs. Yeah, the thing is, it's out of the guys you trust, it like Strom, Soto, who's been roughed up lately, and Alvarado. Those three are lefties. Kimbrel's your closer, who's a righty, so you're not going to really use him before the ninth. So you're only like situational righty with any resemblance of being decent is Dominguez, who's not been that good, honestly, like I just mentioned. So I felt like they really needed another righty. I don't know, like Bilotti and Brogdon, are they going to come up? Like, I just don't know if Hoffman is your number two righty in playoffs. Like, I think that's why Lorenzen probably goes to the bullpen, because I think he becomes your number two righty situational guy. Obviously, Rangers a lefty, so yeah, that part I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I'm like they're gonna have to score 8 runs a game.
Yeah. Here's my thing, and I've always found this weird about baseball. It's always like the situational lefty out of the bullpen. It seems like people aren't as worried about playing like right-handed matchups as much.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, and it comes down to Strom opens for Walker, I'd rather have as many lefties in the pen as possible. Just thinking about the potential matchups, if we are the 1 seed in the wild card round, the Giants have Conforto, who kills us, lefty. Lamont Wade, who's having a decent year, lefty. Peterson, lefty. Yastrzemski, lefty. So like I'd rather have stack my lefties, and then the second round, Braves, Olsen, lefty, although he just hits home runs off everyone. Michael Harris, lefty. Eddie Rosario, lefty. And then if it's the Dodgers, then it'd be Freeman, lefty. And I think it'd be interesting because, again, it goes back to how does Walker's stuff play out of the bullpen? Because if Lorenzen has his changeup going like that, like he did the other night, I'm comfortable starting him because that is like a neutralizer for lefties with how that changeup looks and how it fades away from them. So I'd almost, if you're debating whether you want Strom opening for Walker, I'd just void that, see how Walker looks in the bullpen, and your rotation be Wheeler, Nola, Lorenzen.
I can see that too. Yeah, there's a lot of different combos here. I don't know if I really love any of them, but I think if the team starts hitting again, it won't matter as much. Did want to just show this. This was the strike call that Alec Bohm got thrown out of the game on today with the bases loaded in the 7th inning with 2 outs. I don't know if it cost him the game. It definitely would have at least been 2-1, so you never know. And Bryce Harper, for all of his recent struggles, is still Bryce Harper and seems to do pretty well with the bases loaded in big spots in Philadelphia. So, yeah, a bummer there. I really don't know why they can't just do the pitch strike challenge. Obviously, not every pitch, but if you get one in at bat, I think things would be a lot better. They do it in the minors. It's really quick. It doesn't do much to the pace of play. So, yeah, the rent umpire or whatever he was, a call-up umpire, just really bad. There were a couple really bad ones. Actually, I don't think this wasn't the same guy with the first base fiasco, right?
No,
Yeah.
different guy. But I don't understand what this call-up umpire system is. Like, do they just not have enough umpires that they need to?
I don't know if like the veteran guys take vacations around this time of year. Like they get time off and then these guys get called off. I don't really know how that works. This umpire got into it with, I think, the Yankees and the Cubs last time he was the home plate umpire.
I think it was David Ross right before the All-Star
Yeah.
break.
Yeah, so clearly not the best. Needs to be he needs to be reviewed. He also Then an inning later, called out Bryce Harper on a iffy call, a little closer than this one, but that resulted in Rob Thompson getting thrown out. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on with the umpires. It just seems like this year it's been worse, which it's always been bad, I feel like, but this year I felt worse about it. And it seems like the Phillies have been screwed a lot more than I can remember.
Yeah, going into the season with all this talk of robo umps picking up steam, I was kind of anti robo umps just because like I don't want the game to be like become so like monotonous and repetitive and just so like mechanical. But I don't know, like it's not, and I get it, it's hard because obviously balls are coming in on average over 95 miles an hour, and you have less than a second to react. But like, I don't know, man. You at some point there has to be like repercussions for this. Like guys argue a strike call or guys do something wrong and they get suspended or ejected or something along those lines. Umpires make bad calls and it's like, well, you should have protected the plate with 2 strikes. Well, that's not even close. Like as far as a strike call goes,
yeah, he's not doing anything with that pitch anyway. So
yeah, it's the hitter's fault that he didn't swing 4 inches off the plate to protect it. Oh well, if he's been calling all day, well, it's not the hitter's fault that he called a bad pitch a strike all day. Like that just means that the umpire missed more calls throughout the day. So I don't know. I'm leaning more towards robo umps than I was at the start of the season because, like you said, it seems like this is happening to the Phillies a lot. I mean, I can even remember CB Buckner in Texas just being horrible on opening weekend. Yeah. But like, I don't know. I think at some point there has to be penalties for umpires just butchering big spots like that.
And they do grade this stuff because it's how they decide the playoff teams or whatever you want to playoff crews for the umpires. So I mean, MLB clearly grades these guys. So you would think, there should be a percentage that you're below. You should not be allowed to do major league games. Like bad players get sent down to the minors, then send them down, and then if their percentages rise, they can have another opportunity. I just feel like you said, there's a lack of punishment or repercussions for them while the players, the coaches, and everyone else get the brunt of it.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
All right, so that's gonna be it for this one. Interesting week for the Phillies coming up because they only have a 2-game series in Toronto. Tough pitching matchups though up there. That's a really good team heading to the playoffs. Yeah, Gosman and Kikuchi is the first game, and then I think Gosman's the second game. And I think the Phillies throw Wheeler and Nola. And then the Phillies go to Washington, but the Sunday game will be at the Little League World Series. And the Pennsylvania team is actually from outside Philly, repping the Mid-Atlantic. I think that's still the region name, right?
Yeah, I think so. I honestly don't know because I wasn't one of the regions mountains.
They renamed a couple of them. I know. I don't know if the Mid-Atlantic.
So I've been so far out of touch with that. I think honestly, like the last time I watched any games of that was when the Phillies played there against the Pirates.
Yeah,
so
that was.
It's been a while.
Yeah, that was 2018 actually. Boy, that was. I think it was the Mets actually. That was the game where Kepler implemented the 3 first basemen in the lineup. Hoskins, Santana, and Bohr all were in the game at the same time. And no DH, by the way. One was playing first, one was playing third, one was playing left. And as much as the Phillies have driven me crazy the past 2 days, they've come a long way from that situation.
Yeah. Two things about the upcoming schedule or whatever. One, the first one doesn't pertain to the Phillies, but it's just funny that they're playing the 4th place Nationals because they're ahead of the Mets in the standings. Yeah. But after Washington, big series at home against the Giants.
Yeah.
I think that's a 3-game series, which will be huge because they got swept in San Francisco.
Yeah, they got to win all 3 or there's no tiebreaker. Yeah.
And they need 3 to, 2 ideally for standings, at least
Right,
gain a
just stay a
game.
game ahead of them, yeah.
If you're going to lose, only lose one. But 3 would be huge to kind of cancel out the tiebreaker. And I don't even know what it is after head-to-head record. I think it's interdivision standings.
It's something like, yeah, I don't really. I'd have to look into it more.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a big series that will be hopefully. I mean, the crowds have been great this year. I was at the first standing ovation game for Turner, and it was insanely loud. But hopefully that'll be like early playoff type atmosphere as far as full sellouts, even though it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday series. But Kapler back in Philly, playoff race, that should be pretty loud.
Yeah, that'll be either a fun one or Bryce in his veins might not be alive after it. One of the two.
Are you talking about yourself?
Yeah, apparently. Everyone thinks that, but no, not me. All right, so that's gonna do it for this one. Maybe let's try to talk before this Giants series, depending on how these 5 games go. Just get a split in Toronto, please. Just don't make it a disaster like last year when they went up there. So that would be great. All right, we'll see you guys next time.